But the biggest thing is that all of this is happening in the midst of the fog of war. And I think this is a good time to switch gears for a moment because, like, sure, our economy is strong, but why is it strong? Let's think about it. Our economy is strong because the U.S. dollar is backed by oil. Now, what's happening overseas in the Middle East right now? Oh, well, there is a ceasefire in place for a war that Trump created, right? And why was this war created? It wasn't to get rid of extremists. It wasn't to get rid of a nuclear program. We got rid of that nuclear program last year. We obliterated their nuclear program last year. So why did we attack Iran in the first place? First of all, I do think that Israel has a lot of control over our politicians, for one, because, long story short, Israel does have a lot of ties and a lot of influence over the way people are elected, the way people receive funding for their campaigns and stuff like that through AIPAC. And, I'm not up here trying to be a conspiracy theorist. This is just a fact. You just look it up. It's public data because all campaign contributions are real. But this is not just Israel. This is any kind of company, any kind of country directly influencing our elections, and not only our elections, but our politicians on an everyday level. I mean, you think about Bob Menendez. What did he go to prison for? He was bribed by Egypt to basically just kind of like do things in their favor. Like if something came up in Congress or something like that, or in the House and stuff like that, and he was able to influence it, he did. And he went to prison for it because, it's illegal to be bribed and to act on the behalf of a foreign entity. But the thing is that all of our politicians do it all the time. It wasn't just Bob Menendez. It's through countries like Israel. It's through countries like China. It's through countries, any country you can name. I guarantee that somehow our politicians have been influenced by another foreign entity. Not only a foreign entity, but by corporate capture. And what do I mean by that? Sure. Corporations in the U.S., what's the big deal, Grant? The big deal is that our vote, our choice, the people's choice, isn't being realized through corporate capture. Actually, that's kind of funny. Through corporate capture, through all these corporations strangleholding the current administration, like all the AI companies. Why are they successful? Granted, yes, it is because AI is an insane tool to be used in our civilization. Absolutely. But part of it is because they have politicians right where they have them. I'm thinking about Palantir. The CEO of Palantir, Peter Thiel, he basically just groomed JD Vance into the vice presidency. And if he becomes president, Peter Thiel's investment paid off. He was able to get JD Vance in and make a bunch of government contracts. I mean, they already have a bunch of government contracts with Palantir, but it's just the idea that all these different corporations, they fund the careers of our politicians. It's not a theory. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's just proven fact. It's just public records, So it's just the fact of I think we're caught in the middle of really deciding who we want to be as a country. Do we want to continue on this path of destruction and basically become a late-stage capitalistic empire? Or do we want to throw off the controls that corporations have over us and become a true capitalistic society? The only reason people complain about America being a late-stage capitalist country is because of the control corporations have over politicians. It isn't capitalism's fault that there's corruption. There's corruption because corporations and billionaires have influenced Congress to basically just do their bidding. I mean, for instance, I would be considered in the lower middle class or middle class, whatever it might be. But in my instance, why do I have to pay a few $100s in taxes every year compared to the billionaire who gets to offload all of his offshore accounts to an island in the middle of the Pacific or the Atlantic and say, oh, it's not money in the U.S., it's just that company's money or that LLC's money or that LLC shell or whatever it might be. How is that allowed? It's because corporate capture has captured our country, and we're fed this crap and this lie that we have to pick sides, whether being Democrat or Republican, and we're fed this lie that somehow democracy is being lost. No, democracy is not being lost just as long as a Democrat or as a Republican is in office. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones controlling the script. Every single one. It doesn't matter who you think you prescribe to. Like, I really truly believe that if we want to become a free country again, we have to consider, like, how are we going to get rid of the two-party system? That's just a real conversation I think we should have, because, like, at the end of the day, like, say what you want about the support you have about a political party. Sure, everyone has their political leanings. I'm not saying people don't. Like, I have a political leaning towards the right slightly. But the thing that people have to remember is this. A liberal is not my enemy. Like, they aren't. A Democrat is not my enemy. The other side, or my side, quote unquote, will make it sound like they're my enemy. No, we actually have like tons of things in common. If we're going to let the 1% issues, meaning 1% of the population being affected by those issues, control us, then we're in deep trouble. And we've already done that basically to ourselves, and it's unfortunate. But the main thing that I'm trying to get out of this is this. We had to follow the money, and we had to realize that our US dollar, the reason why we're able to sustain $34 trillion in debt is because we are able to keep the Strait of Hormuz, or we have in the past tense, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, have past tense been able to keep the Strait of Hormuz open. And in terms of, like, recent events and stuff like that, why is that such a big deal? Like, didn't Trump obliterate Iran's country? Yeah, he did. But Iran doesn't have to win militarily. They just have to win politically and economically. Because at the end of the day, what is the US dollar built off of? It's not built off of gold, definitely not gold. That went away long ago. It's definitely not the military. It's off of oil, because every single country on earth has to get American dollars to be able to get oil from anywhere. It doesn't matter. And so basically, like, countries like China, Russia, and all these other countries have been trying for years to try to use their own currencies or try to make a economic transaction to where they don't have to rely on US dollars, but it's never changed. Hence why people buy our debt and buy bonds in our debt, because they want US dollars. They want to make money off of US dollars, off of our debt, off of our, what is it now? $34 trillion, as I said, yeah. $34 trillion debt, so that they can get American dollars to buy oil. And that's the same for all of the oil that they get through the Strait of Hormuz in Iran. And not only that, but you got to think about this. So not only is there the risk of losing our standing in the world economically, because, that's the backing of the US dollar, oil, through that strait. And not just through that strait, because that's like just 20% of the world's oil. That's a lot, technically, obviously. But it's just the point of, like, if we want to shoot ourselves in the foot, we'll keep doing what we're doing to Iran. And that's why Trump called the ceasefire, because he realized, if I continue this, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. It's not just going to be high gas prices. It's going to be an economy that has a huge economic downturn, because we cannot sustain that kind of defensive act in the Strait of Hormuz, and we can't attack either. There was tons of war games that were conducted by the U.S. military for this, like, particular situation, for this literal war that's happening currently, because the ceasefire didn't really actually happen. But the point is that the thing is, the Strait of Hormuz, right, is basically impossible to defend and to attack the adversary in. Why? Because if you don't know this already, Iran basically has a geographical advantage. And in this geographical advantage, they can just launch missiles, they can launch drones, cheap drones, mind you, at ships, at whatever, and they can swarm us, not just with drones, but with just even, like, soldiers with boats that just attack ships and stuff like that. Granted, is our ships going to sink because of, like, one little thing? They might. I don't know. I'm not a ship expert or, like, a military expert, but, like, the biggest thing to imagine is this. Here's a $50,000 drone that Iran made, really cheap compared to the United States. And then here's a $10 million missile intercepting it. You see what I'm getting at here? We are losing money by defending or attacking Iran. Or not defending Iran, but defending ourselves when Iran attacks. And Iran knows this. Because that's the whole reason why it's important to try to get oil still flowing through the Strait of Hormuz, because if we don't, China and Russia, they're going to try to figure out a way to get oil somewhere else, especially China, because all of China, South Korea, North Korea, Japan, all of them, all of Asia depend on the Strait of Hormuz because it comes through the Strait of Hormuz and then they truck it out through the Middle East up until Asia, everywhere, and out, into the ocean too. However, but the point is that all these countries depend on this. And if Trump is going to let his ego or whatever it might be that he's trying to gain out of this, right? If he's going to let that come in between our economy, our livelihood, our country, and all of these different things, then we're going to suffer the consequences because all these other countries will figure out a way to get oil through some other currency. If it means that we are pig-headed and decide to continue this war with Iran. And this is the thing. I'm not saying Iran's winning the war, technically. They lost, technically. But they don't care. They're an extremist state. To say that, Iran is somehow, cares about anything, they don't. They know, time's on their side. That's what I'm trying to get at. Time is on their side because time is not on our side. They just have to survive this. That's all they have to do. And because of their extremist views, they just throw whatever at us. They don't care. They just have to survive this. And so that's why this whole thing is important to understand, because in the midst of all this political chaos, right, there's the belief that, for instance, oil is not in short supply, maybe it is, I don't know. But the point is, this is the thing. We don't know. People don't tell us. Our leaders will not tell us because why? It'll cause anarchy. It'll cause chaos and all that stuff. It'll cause markets to crash, right? We don't want the markets to crash, quote unquote. But the thing is that we don't know what the situation is like. Why did Trump take over Venezuela? Obviously for the oil. If it wasn't to free the people of Venezuela, sure, the people of Venezuela get that benefit if that's true, right? But he did it for oil. And so there's this belief that, as Putin said, the world is collapsing, quote unquote. And what does this mean? It doesn't mean that the world is ending and that we're all going to die. It just means that whoever controls the oil controls the world, basically. It's not going to, the world is changing. There's this theory that America is trying to make itself this technate. And what is a technate? A nation that is a technate, the technate nation, is basically this giant superpower that engulfs all these other countries and basically directly influences them. So for instance, for the United States, that would be controlling all of the United States, Canada, parts of Europe, almost all of Europe, and all of South America and Central America. That's the American technate, quote unquote.